We are recording.
All right. Well, once again, welcome everybody to our 2024 Lake Protectors training. We are going to go over a lot over the next 2 hours, but don't worry, there are lots of resources available, especially on our website, adkinvasives.com. You can go there. There is a Lake Protectors page that has all this on there. We'll put the slides of this online also, and we will upload this video to YouTube, so you'll be able to check back in and watch it later on. The first we're going to go over and give an introduction and some understanding about a general aquatic invasive species. For some of you, this might be your Invasive Species 101 review. Like I said, my name is Brian Green. I have the great privilege of being the Aquatic Invasive Species Coordinator for the Adirondack Prism. So we are the Adirondack Park Invasive Plant Program called APIPP. I work for the Nature Conservancy, and we are the organization that manages the Adirondack Prism, which stands for Partners for Regional Invasive Species Management. So our funding comes from the New York State DEC through the Environmental Protection Fund, and they break the state into 8 different regions, and we work together in collaboration with everyone to help minimize the negative impacts on our lands and waters and communities in the Adirondack. So we do a lot of terrestrial invasive species work. We have education and outreach things, but today we're going to be focusing on our aquatic invasive species. So you can use the chat feature. Sean will be helping me out with the chat while I'm giving this presentation. So you can start off by, dropping in the chat, maybe where you're from, or what's your lake that you're interested in monitoring or thinking to survey, or what's your favorite lake out there. So yeah, just we can kind of get a sense of where people are coming from. I can see some people who've been through many years of these trainings before, so it's good to see some familiar faces, but there's also some new places. Ooh, Gold Pond, that'll be a good one. Hi, good morning, Kathy. Yes, Chattagate Lakes are awesome. Gonna do Forest Port, Rainbow Lake, D-Bar Pond. Yeah, we have all people all over. Auger Lake, Lake Pleasant. So yeah, we have so many lakes. We're so fortunate up here. They are incredible resources for our personal enjoyment, for the ecology, and also for our economies and communities. So it's great that you are taking the time and helping to give back, because we got a big summer ahead. And when you're thinking of the 2024 summer, many people might be thinking about this. It's an Olympic year. We have this great Olympic tradition here in the Adirondacks with Lake Placid and our Winter Olympics, but the Summer Olympics are also really fun. And, you get to go out and you get to watch all these amazing athletes, setting high bars, overachieving their goals and going through everything. But I'm here to tell you, it's not just these Olympians that are the main stars for this summer. It's you. It's our lake protectors, our APIPP lake protectors who go out there, because we have a big summer ahead too. This graph on the right is showing the blue line is the number of surveys that are reported to the lake protectors, and the green line is the number of lakes. So 2021 was my first season getting started. We had a pretty good year. 2022, we had a really great year. We set our all-time record, 182 surveys from 150 some water bodies across the park. So that was an all-time high for number of surveys. I said, man, that's going to be pretty tough to beat. But then 2023, we beat it again. We did 184 surveys across the park. So we've set a really, really high bar if we want to go 3 years in a row setting an all-time record for a 20+ year program. So that's where we need you to come in. We need all our lake associations. We need our partner nonprofits. We need our communities, our volunteers, our teachers. So help us achieve a 3rd year in a row, get us that gold medal. And here's our inspirational quote from Michael Phelps, is that, don't put a limit on anything. The more you dream, the further you get. So hopefully we can all dream big, and I'd love to see us cross over that high bar of 184 surveys. So I'm counting on all of you to help us do that. Actually, just serendipitously, we got our first volunteer lake protector report this morning. So they're already starting to come in. So thanks to Dom for getting us kicked off on that part. So one down, 184 more to go. Okay, so the first part, we are going to go over to learn how aquatic invasive species impact the Adirondacks, and then we're going to talk about some of the key identification features for both plants and animals, and then talk about spread prevention. We'll take a little break, and then we'll come back and talk about the logistics of how to do the monitoring and how to report it. So invasive species 101, invasive species is a non-native plant or animal to a region, and generally they've been moved there by humans, so they've been introduced to a new region, and they cause harm to the environment, the economy, or the public health. And so I always like to think of it as like this gradient, this spectrum, so there are plants like poison ivy, which is native to our region. It definitely hurts people. It's definitely a nuisance. People don't like it, but it's native. It's been here for, millenniums. Then we have other plants like tomatoes, which clearly are not native to the Adirondacks, but they don't become troublesome. They're not growing rampant throughout our forest and causing all sorts of problems. Heck, I can't even get them to grow in my garden with lots of love and care. So, and then there's zebra mussels, which is one of our classic invasive species. So came over from Eurasia in the ballast water of tanker ships to the Great Lakes, and now has been spread all throughout our systems in New York and across North America. Really strong impacts to our ecology, to the food webs, strong impacts to our economy and people's enjoyment of it. And so even within invasive species, there is a range about how strong of impacts individual invasive species can have. And so what is the reason? Why are some non-native species invasives? Well, when they come over, they tend to lack the predators and parasites that control them. That's why we do a lot of research and work with using biocontrols as one of our tools we have for management. They can produce many offsprings and seeds. Looking at the purple loosestripe picture, where they have tens of thousands of seeds from, an individual plant. They can produce by different means, by fragmentation, like Eurasian water milfoil, by turions and tubers. They're generally generalist. They can survive in a wild and a lot of bit of habitats. And when they get into a place, they tend to monopolize the resources. So they take over the habitat, they take over the space. They're using all the energy. They're using up all the resources. So there's not much for other native plants and animals to fill in that niche. And, aquatic invasive species, they can have a lot of negative ecological impacts. Strongly concerned with their the biodiversity loss. When they come in some places, they can form complete monocultures, reducing our biodiversity of our native plants and animals. They disrupt food webs. They can decrease the light into our lakes, the oxygen and the space. They can lead to warmer waters. They can actually lead to eutrophication. And sometimes they are associated with introduced pathogens. So things like the zebra mussels or the invasive mystery snails can cause some of these pathogens in there. And this can have an impact on our economy. Millions of dollars locally are spent trying to manage invasive species. They also have negative impacts on our recreation and our tourism. They can reduce property values. They have human health impacts that can be associated with cyanobacteria or creating dead zones. Reduce water quality, which then we have to, try to pay to remediate or try to improve. They can lead to flooding damage and to drainage. So strong ecological and economic impacts. And, happy to talk about that more if any people have any questions, or there's lots of great research or books you can read about this. But we're going to jump right into our species identification. And this is our list of our 2024 AIS species. It's the same species we've done for the past couple years, 8 plants and 8 animals. Not all of these species are currently inside our prism. Some of them, like round goby or hydrilla, are outside, but we want to make you aware about them because we'll talk about later on about early detection. So yeah, so we're going to go through the plants first, and then we're going to go to the animals next. Okay, so when we talk about aquatic plants, we frequently talk about different types of life forms where they are growing in the water. So they are what we call emergent plants. Their roots are in the bottom, they're wet, but they emerge through the water, and most of them is above water. So that would be like a cattail, for example. Floating plants that can be either rooted at the bottom and just floating at the surface, like lily pads. Or there are some free floating ones with roots, like your European frogbit, are at the surface, or like little duckweeds. And then there's even algae plants that are in the water column, very small, sometimes single or multicellular algae plants that are free floating, no true roots. And then there's submergent plants, which are growing from the bottom of a water body. Most of the plant growth is in the water column below the surface, and they might have a floating leaf or have a flower that just pops up at the end of the season. There's a lot of plant terminology that when you look at guidebooks or different resources, they'll talk about. We're not going to be able to cover all of this in our hour go through there, but a couple ones I want to point out. We talk a lot about the arrangement on a stem. Where are the leaves? Are they do they alternate on the sides of the stem? Are they opposite, right across from each other? Or are they in a whorled pattern where they are going around what we call a node around there? Another common thing that we'll talk about is the edge of the leaf. Is the edge of the leaf smooth, or is it have tooths or serrations on there? Many of our invasive plants have small serrations on the edge of the leaf, so that's a good characteristic to look at. And like I said, we're going to go through these 8 plants and then 8 other animals, and I'm not expecting everybody to become an expert about it, right now. This is a lifetime of learning, just like trying to learn birds or learn to play music, identify birds or how to play music. And the real key thing is you're trying to teach you that there are some key identification features. So you get kind of like this search image of something that if you see it, it kind of sets off an alarm bell, like, hey, what's that in the water? Maybe I should look closer. And to show you how this works, I'm going to show you 2 images of 2 things that you've never seen in real life, but you know what the key identification features are. So you've already been pre-trained to be able to identify them. So who can type in what this is in the chat? Yeah, it's Tinkerbell. It's a fairy. So how do we know it's a fairy? What are the key characteristics of a fairy?
Like the wings.
Yep,
Wand.
it has a wings and a wand. So if you see something that's has wings and a wand, even though you've never seen a fairy in real life, maybe somebody dressed up as one, it goes off, ding, this is a fairy in yours. Okay, here's another one. What's this mythical creature called?
Unicorn.
Yeah, it's a unicorn. How do we know it's a unicorn?
The horn.
Yeah, it's got like a horse-shaped figure, and it's got a horn coming out of its head. So this is great. These are great examples of how you've been taught to take key features and then train your brain to say, okay, when I see a horse with a horn coming out of its head, that means unicorn, even though you've never really seen one in real life. So we're trying to do the same thing with these species that we're going to go through here. Okay, our first one is Eurasian water milfoil, Myriophyllum spicatum. This is our most common invasive species in the Adirondack prism. They can grow extremely dense. They can frequently go up to the surface and spread across, forming a canopy. Um, can have incredible growth rates through a day, really clog areas for boating and recreation. And they primarily are dispersed by boats moving from place to place and little fragments on those boats. A small 1-inch, 2-inch fragment can dislodge from one lake, get transported into another lake, and if it settles into the right substrate, it can start growing. Here's a map from iMapInvasives. All of our data from the past 20 plus years have gone into iMap. So your data goes into this. It helps us form this great community science database that researchers, professionals like myself would use for lots of different things. So big thank you to iMapInvasives. And as you can see, Eurasian water milfoil is widely spread across the region. It's in over 65 different lakes in our prism, and is our most common invasive species. How you identify this one is has leaves that are like feather shaped. So you can see this central, what we call the rachis, the spine of it, and then the individual little fine leaflets coming off of it. They're normally in whorls of 4, so 4 leaflets around a node. Usually have a lot of individual leaflets, usually 11 plus on there. And at the ends of them appear like they've been cut like off. So they're kind of a square end. And then the other key feature is that it has this large stem space between the leaves. And the stems can often have a whitish to pinkish red color on them. And the stems are generally very light also. So here's a good picture of that light colored stem and that kind of clipped things right there. And, you know, these things are floating in the water. So when they're floating in the water, they kind of spread out. But if you take it out of the water, they're very soft. They'll just kind of collapse on each other. So that's Eurasian water milfoil. We have another invasive milfoil, variable water milfoil, Myriophyllum heterophyllum, that is a related species that also grows very dense and has these very bushy growth forms. Some people call it like a pipe cleaner, or a very brush-like structure. The space between the nodes is very close, right through there. So it looks slightly different from Eurasian. This is probably one of our harder ones to identify because there are native milfoils that can look a little bit similar to these. This one has a different distribution pattern. It's more on the western side of our region in the northwest. This species is native to the southern United States, at the Mississippi Ohio River drainage, so a different part of the country. And when it comes in, it can cause some really dense growth. Often see it growing very low in the water column. Some of the leaves are in those whorls, but sometimes the whorls aren't as tight. Sometimes they're what we call like radial scattered. So it's like a ladder. It's kind of like going up and around there. The leaflets tend to be less exact in their when they match up along that feather pattern, and they come to a taper, like a tree kind of shape, not a square point. Couple key features are the stems are often really red or brown through them. They have and then the best key feature is in the flower stalk. And so I see Kathy's comment about a mare's tail. This flower stalk, when it is growing, is the best way to kind of tell it apart from mare's tail or some of our other native ones, in that it is it'll grow really thick. Sometimes like it's like thick as your finger, really bright red, and then it has these serrated secondary or variable flowers, which are their sepals. So here's a picture of that really kind of reddish brown, very dark stem, and then here's the above water portion you can see that's coming there, a very swollen stem with these serrated sepals on through there, and that's a good way to differentiate it from other native milfoils, but also native things like sometimes people confuse them with mare's tail or water marigold, some other ones with finely divided leaves. Another invasive plant that we have is fanwort, Kabamba caroliniana, sometimes called kabamba, also a native to the southern United States. This one was probably introduced from an aquarium dumping, where people dumped out an aquarium that had some of these plants and they can get established in there. It also spreads by fragmentation, so there is not a just a small little group of it can start to regrow. We only have it in a few lakes in the southern Adirondacks. It's not very widespread. We are hopeful that, in general, our water is too cold for this southern species, but with climate change and as we're getting warmer, the habitat is becoming more susceptible to these southern species. So something to keep an eye out for. It has this kind of unique, kind of very lacy pattern. It has opposite leaves, and these opposite leaves are on a stalk. So if you look at this drawing, you can see from the stem, there's a stalk, and then it comes out, and then it kind of goes into this forked pattern. And this forked pattern is different than the milfoils, which have a feather pattern on it to it. So has kind of this unique leaf arrangement. This picture up here in the yellow, you can see that there's a stem in the middle, and then it kind of goes off to either side right there. So like I said, there are some native milfoils. We've done a really good job of telling people about invasive species. People are always like, oh yeah, milfoil, Eurasian water milfoil. That's kind of our most common one. People are generally pretty surprised when I tell them we actually have 6 native milfoil species that have been here for tens of thousands of years. And there's also some other common species that can have some patterns. Hornwort, which are Ceterophyllums. They have what's a forked pattern that sometimes people get confused with. Much stiffer though than most of our invasives. Here's that forked pattern that's coming off from there. But once again, it doesn't have a stalk on them, which is different from the kabamba, the fanwort. Common bladderwort, one of our most common species. Bladderworts in general, we have many different species. They're very common in the Adirondacks. Super cool plant. Their key feature are these little bladders or these sacs. They're actually a carnivorous plant. They're catching little zooplankton and things and digesting them. Super amazing animals. So if you see these little bladders on them, that is most likely one of our native bladderworts. Here's a picture of water marigold that kind of has these, once again, forked pattern, but there's not really a stalk on it. And then once again, it has a yellow leaf that comes with these bigger leaves above water, so that kind of differentiates it from the from our variable leaf milfoil. And then here's 2 pictures of our 2 native milfoils, probably northern water milfoil, Myriophyllum sibericum is probably our most common. Generally, it looks like daintier or like thinner in the leaf structure. The leaves are generally stiffer, kind of curled upward, and they generally have like kind of a brighter little green color when they're growing to them, and they have this kind of tree-like kind of pattern. They don't have the square tip stem through there. So northern water milfoil is fairly common. You can see it pretty widespread in some of our lakes. World water milfoil, this is one that people have gotten confused with variable leaf. It can grow very dense. You can find some incredibly dense stands of this that are native, which is, you know, kind of surprising when you go out and you see a really big stand of like kind of a monoculture, and it's like, oh wow, there's got to be an invasive milfoil. But actually, some of these native ones can grow really strong. It has a darker colored stem and the small internodal space into it too, so it makes you think about variable. But it has a different sepal, and you know, with these world flowers look on it. So having the flowers and the sepals is a really good identification tool for them. Okay, now here's go to a plant that you won't you won't confuse with anything else. This is water chestnut.
Hey, Brian,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt. Before you get into water chestnut, someone asked, how do you tell the difference between variable and mare's tail?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is with the for variable leaf is the stem, the above water flowering stem. So it gets really thick and dark red color, and then has these kind of variable like the variable part of it. It has the serrated leaves at the bottom. They're technically sepals that are on there. So that's generally the best characteristic to use to identify it from the native species. Okay, so back to water chestnut. Water chestnut has this really unique pattern. It's grows generally in slow waters like lakes or slow moving areas of rivers. It can form this really dense canopy, can completely shade out everything underneath them, killing native species below them, decreasing dissolved oxygen in there. It's an annual that grows from a seed. We have it spread unfortunately fairly widely through Lake Champlain, despite a lot of efforts to try to contain it. Not very much in the Adirondacks, so this is a species we're really trying to manage and remove from all the internal places in the Adirondacks. So keeping an eye out and finding this early is a key thing. The key identification features are the triangular leaves that are serrated, so they have these kind of teeth on them, and those are the floating leaves that are at the water surface. And then it has these really large nutlets that are growing. When they're growing on the plant, they're kind of like a greenish color. When they drop down, they can be brown, and when they kind of grow up, they can kind of float to the surface and be have a really dark black color. They have 4 spines on them. There is a different species, another non-native species, Bisonosa, that has 2 spines on it. We haven't seen that one up here, so mainly we're focusing on the Trapanotans, the water chestnut. And here's a picture of it. It has the stems have these air bladders, these little protrusions, these sacs that are filled with air, and that's what helps it float on the surface of it. So that's another key identification feature. And then you'll see the below water, it actually has some leaves that are really finely kind of serrated out there. Almost looks kind of like milfoil. So this is a pretty unique one floating on the water surface, one you do not want on your lake or river. So please keep an eye out for it. Another floating species that we monitor and we track the location is European frogbit. It is ones that escaped from cultivation in Canada and has moved all across the Great Lakes. It has both a fruit and a flower and a turion and fragmentation. So it has these multiple spread methods, and it's a really small plant, but it can grow in these really dense groupings. I always generally find it on the edges of water bodies, tucked in with other cattails or phragmites or other native plant growth on the edge of there, not too much in the open part of the water. All spread throughout the Lake Champlain, St. Lawrence River Valley. We have a few places in the interior of the Adirondacks, but not too much of it. So another one we want to early detection and hopefully can try to control populations. It has these heart-shaped kind of floating leaves on the surface that has a little notch in there with some rounded lobes on top. It has white flowers that have 3 petals to it. And the one of the key things that I always notice is it has these dense growth, or usually growing in clumps, and it has roots, but the roots are free floating, so they're hanging in the water. So when you pull it up, it's just kind of this mass of them. So here's a good example. They're just kind of all woven together like this. So there's a good picture of that root tangle when you pull it up. Usually people don't confuse water chestnut or European frogbit because of their size and their shapes. But we do have many other floating native plants. So things like white water lilies kind of has the pizza slice out of it, and the white very odorous flowers through them. And then we have our big yellow pond lily, or cow lily, people call it, that has spatter dock, has a yellow, bright yellow flower on it. There's also a small one called water shield that has kind of like a football or oblong shape with the stem going right into the middle of it, and it has a protective gel on the bottom of it. Is slippery jelly you can kind of feel. Super cool plant, turns all some beautiful colors right around there. And then there's some smaller native plants. This is probably one of my favorite native plants, is little floating heart. It has a white flower that has 5 petals, not 3 petals, to be confused with the European frogbit. It also has these floating tubers, and you can see these little bananas kind of like underneath it. And so yes, frogbit leaves are smaller than little floating heart. Frogbit leaves are you're pretty rare to see one as big as like a $50 coin. Most of the time they're like a quarter, like a nickel size. And so the little floating heart is much bigger than that. Okay,
Hey,
our
Brian,
next one.
quick question about the frogbit. Are frogbit leaves smaller than little floating hearts?
Yes, that's what I was just saying. They are bigger than the frogbit is smaller than little floating heart. Little floating heart has larger leaves. If we kind of go back, you can see, like, here's a picture in the bottom right of little floating heart. And then, here's some of these, so you can kind of see for scale, like here's some hypha, some cattails coming up, and you can see how small all of these European frogbit is.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, so one that's technically not a plant is a macroalgae, so a communal algae. This is starry stonewort. It grows on the bottom, can be up to 7 to 8 feet deep in these big kind of pillowy mats underwater, very dense. It gets the starry name from a reproductive structure, a white star-like bubble that it has. You can see in this picture right through here. So these are very thin. They don't have true roots. They are growing in these kind of dense colonies kind of together. We do not have this species in the Adirondack prism, but it is unfortunately close by. I think our nearest lake that has it is like 5 miles away. This can be spread on motorboats and other different equipment moving from lake to lake. So that's why we talk about clean, drain, dry a lot. And, we really want to prevent this moving from water body to water body. So, this is another one to keep an eye out for. Curly leaf pondweed this is Potamogeton crispus. It is a invasive pondweed. Pondweeds, which are in the Potamogeton genus, are some of our most common and widespread aquatic plants in the Adirondacks and in North America and the world. This is our only invasive one that we have here. It has a unique life cycle where it starts growing in the late fall, November, December time, grows up under the ice, and then really starts growing in, you know, April, May when the ice outs. And then, by now it's when it gets warm, it's already started to senesce and go dormant. So a lot of times people don't really see this on there. It forms these winter buds, these turions that it drops every year, and it grows back from them. So this is one that is in some lakes. It's probably underreported because most of the time our most popular months for boating, July, August, September, this plant is dormant and is sleeping at the bottom of the lake. So we don't see it. In the Tri-Lakes area, Lower Saranac, around there, all throughout Lake Champlain, Lake George, some other different things, fairly widespread. It can grow up to 12 to 16 feet deep. It can grow on these kind of runners that are growing underneath there. But the key features is this kind of what we call wavy or curly leaf, these alternate leaves, and that look like people would describe as like lasagna-like or bacon-like. And you can kind of see that here. So, and then it has these fine tooth, really small teeth on the edge. So you have to kind of look closely to kind of see it, but it's one of our only pondweeds that have these tooth on the edges of their leaves up here. So if you see that curly bacon lasagna-like and teeth with the alternate leaves on it, good indication that it is the curly leaf pondweed. Like I said, we have native pond weeds, many of them. Clasping leaf pondweed kind of has some kind of bit of waviness to it, but its stem the leaf wraps much more around the stem, hence the clasping nature of it. It does not have the little serrations on it. The leaves are generally wider and longer than the curly leaf. Same thing, white stem pondweed, bigger leaf, wider, more wavier than lasagna or bacon light, and no serrations, no teeth, no fine teeth on it. All sorts of cool pondweeds that we have throughout out there. It's amazing the variation they have. All have alternate leaf structures. Some can be very thin, some can be very big, like our bassweed or Potamogeton amplifolius, the large leaf pondweed. So these are pretty common plants. All right, and our last but least wanted invasive species in the Adirondacks. It's one that we do not have and we really want to keep out. It is hydrilla. It can form incredibly dense mats. Some people call it the perfect weed, because they can just grow in so many different areas and grow so dense and abundant. Also some crazy research that's been shown that hydrilla has been associated with this cyanobacteria that grows on aquatic vegetation, not just hydrilla, but also some of the other things. And it can cause animals like eagles, birds, reptiles, even some mammals that they ingest it, they can get lesions on their brain and then they can die. We had Dr. Susan Wild from University of Georgia come and speak at our symposium a little while ago, and she did great research on this. As you can see, it is not in our region. but it is in the lower Hudson, in the Susquehanna, the Finger Lakes like Cayuga Lake, the Niagara River. It's all throughout the Connecticut River, all throughout different places in Pennsylvania. So we really want to keep it out. The key identification features for hydrilla versus its native lookalike, which is Elodea, is it has whorls in 4 to 6. So here you can see a whorl of 5 right here. And then once again, the leaves are serrated. So there's little tiny teeth on it, and it actually has a small spine on the bottom of the midrib. And so, yeah, this is what you want to look out for. The native Elodea, which is very common all throughout, it has whorls generally in 3. Sometimes it can be more than 3, but the edge is always smooth. So when you're looking and you come across it, Elodea or different things, it's always good to take a quick look, like lift it up and see like, oh, okay, the edge of the leaf is smooth. That shows it's not hydrilla. So keep an eye out on this one. We do not want hydrilla anywhere around us. Okay, so that is the 8 plants. Any quick questions about the plants? I will look through the...
There's one, Brian, I'm not sure if it's referring to frogbit or not. Does the flower stay submerged or does it break the surface?
That was me. It was the number 6 on your
Okay.
list.
Well, let's see what number.
Thank you
6
for clarifying.
Thank you. Yeah. 6 was starry stonewort. I think, yeah, number 6 is starry stonewort. Starry stonewort is always below the water column. It's always below the surface. It kind of has this thin kind of stalk, and then it has these kind of little branches that come out from it. And then these bubbles are below the surface. Sometimes they're even growing, you know, in the mud or things for that. They are believe in asexual reproductive formation. So kind of crazy. So yeah, not even a true flower.
Hey, Brian.
Yep.
This is Steve Myers. I'm on Oxbow Lake. We seem to be having a great growth of some kind of pondweed. I believe it's a native. I've checked it with Peter a few times. It's almost all underwater, and then it just shoots a spur up to the surface with some leaves. My understanding is it may be growing fast in Lake Pleasant and other areas, but boy, it just seems to be increasing dramatically. I believe it's native. I don't suppose there's anything we do about that. I hope it goes in a cycle, or are we seeing it other places?
Yes. So overall, across all of our Adirondack lakes, I commonly hear people say like, it's getting weedier. And, you know, a weed is like dirt, you know, it's like any soil in a place you don't want it. So a weed is a plant in a place that people don't want it. It doesn't matter if it's native or invasive. So yes, we are seeing more growth, and these are from these kind of big factors that are going on. They are due to climate change. Our lakes are a lot warmer. There's a lot more energy going into them. We're also having higher stormwater runoff, which can be carrying more nutrients to your lake. So the story I say to people is, if you had a garden and you put more sunlight and more heat and you put more nutrients in it, what would you expect to happen to the plants in your garden?
Yeah, we definitely see that. And
yeah, you would
seeing...
expect to see them grow more. And so the same thing is happening in our lakes. So there are things that we can work with your lake association or different association to help you do some monitoring to set it up. So it's kind of yes, it's a native plant. We want to have them in the right balance in there. You know, our Adirondack lakes are not swimming pools, and we need these native plants for all sorts of benefits, for the water quality, for the animals, for fishing and lots of different things. But too much of them can start to cause some impacts of there. So really what I recommend local communities and lake associations do is to have a monitoring program set up so you can say like, okay, is it getting a lot worse, or did we just kind of forget what it was like 20 years ago?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, animals now. So here's our scary rusty crayfish right through here. We're gonna go through 8 animals. Yeah, so the first one is spiny water flea. This is a zooplankton that is very minute. You see this picture of it on the end of somebody's fingernail right here, so a couple 10 millimeters, 20 millimeters, across at largest. Most likely, if you're going to see it, how you're going to see it is this picture on the right, where it gets fouled up on fishing lines that people are trolling with, or different things through there. Have very strong impacts on food webs, eating native zooplankton, things like Daphnia and other native animals that we need in our food web, and can change our algal populations in there. It is in 9 lakes throughout our region: Lake Champlain, Lake George, Piseco, Peck, Sacandaga, Lake Pleasant, Indian Lake, and Stewart's Bridge. And so, these are places that, we really want to make sure we do the decontamination with, because it is, so small, it's almost impossible to see. These little flecks in these bags right here are examples of it. And, it really can affect the food webs, because small fish are unable to feed on that long spiny tail of them. So, really has these large ecological impacts on our food webs. There's also another water flea, the fishhook water flea, a very similar zooplankton, has kind of this hook on the end of its tail. Also kind of these little spurs or barbs on it that make it unpalatable to fish to eat. This one is only in Lake Champlain, so not widespread, but once again, we don't want it to move out. So that goes back to our clean, drain, dry messaging, because these things are so small. Next is kind of our poster child for aquatic invasive species, the zebra mussels. These are native to Eurasia. It's like the Black and Caspian Sea. They got moved over to the Great Lakes and North America in the ballast water of these big cargo containers, and can just completely cover shorelines, grow on every single surface. They grow on other living organisms, plants and mussels, on this completely encrusted this shopping cart. Yeah, just ecosystem engineers really changing so much. They're generally pretty small, less than an inch or so, and they get their common name, the zebra, from that kind of stripe pattern. It can be more or less apparent, and one of the key features is that it has a kind of a D shape, or kind of triangular shape. One side of the shell is flat, so you can sit it and it'll just set down on a flat base. Like I said, it can grow and kill our native mussels. It can clog pipes. We spend millions and millions of dollars across New York trying to manage the impacts of this. Changes the water clarity, moves down the Secchi disk readings of it, changes where aquatic plants can grow, changes food webs massively. So very large impacts. We all throughout Lake Champlain, you can't pick up a rock in Lake Champlain without finding zebra mussels on it. There have been some historic populations in Lake George. Generally, we think our lakes in the Adirondacks are have too low of calcium to have really large populations here, but I don't want to test that out, so let's keep them out of there. Also, another related mussel that we have is quagga mussel. So collectively, we call these mussels dracidinids. They're from the Dracaena genus of them. The quagga does have a kind of stripe pattern. It's generally not as strong. It's generally bigger, you know, where it can be up to 2 inches long. So they can be larger than the zebra mussel. But one of the key things is this right here. You'll see this. The zebra mussel has kind of this triangular, or it has a like kind of a flat side to it, where the quagga mussels are more rounded all around. So it doesn't have a flat side. We do not have quagga mussels, any known populations in the Adirondacks. We're trying to keep that, but you know, Lake Ontario, Oneida Lake, down in the Hudson River, there are known ones at Seagull Lake. So another one to keep out. There are some native mussels, like these kind of what people call like heel splitters or Eastern elliptios. There are native snails. There are also invasive snails that we'll kind of talk about. But there is another invasive mussel that we have in our region that is called Asian clam, or Corbicula fluminea. A better name for it would be like golden clam or ridged clam. It has these very strong ridges on it. So like when you kind of hold it, you can kind of take your fingernail and run it over it. And it will have these kind of ridges on it. It also has these, when you open the shell up, it has these, they call these teeth, these intercarnal teeth, these little grooves right at where the hinge is. That's another key features. There are some fingernail clams that can look kind of similar, generally smaller, but none of them really have this really strong ridge or groove on them. The only lake that we have a known population of is Lake George. So trying to, once again, contain them just to the Lake George region. Lake George has a mandatory boat inspection program that definitely helps us with that. And so yeah, so something to be aware of. You know, these Asian clams have kind of like these boom and bust populations where they might be growing in some areas and they're not really much of a problem, but then all of a sudden they get these massive population booms and cause like biofouling and some other issues. They also compete with our native mussels and, you know, change the ecology by being these filter feeders. We have some invasive mystery snails. This is the Chinese mystery snails. There's also a very morphologically similar one, Japanese mystery snail. There's also another smaller banded mystery snail. We really are focusing on these larger mystery snails here. They have very big globular whorls, 4 to 6 whorls like this, generally very kind of dark color, with sometimes you can see this kind of horizontal banding. You can kind of see that on the left picture. And they have a really large, what's called a perculum or trap door, that can close them off in the shell inside there. And another way that I really recognize them is sometimes when you can pick them up, they can have a really strong, very musky odor. Yes, I see Kathy just timed in. Yeah, they can have a really stink. They say people eat these. I don't know how, and I wouldn't recommend to eat these because they showing some research that they can bioaccumulate heavy metals. The mystery of the mystery snail is that they give live birth. So their young that they birth are just very miniature snails. And so they can bioaccumulate and pass on heavy metals like copper and zinc and lead in them. So then that gets into our food systems. So yeah, something to be aware of, and we want to be keeping an eye out for. Generally, we get more reports of these in the northern part of our prism. The St. Regis River, around St. Regis Falls, we found large populations of them. In some of our lower Saranac, middle Saranac, some of these different lakes kind of spread around through here. So yes, ones to be on the aware of. Once again, they have these really large boom and buzz. They are grazers, so they're eating on all the phytoplankton and different things on there, outcompeting native snails. And you can see these booms in their populations, and they get really large, and all of a sudden these like coves are just coated with thousands of them, and they can be pretty smelly. Another invasive animal is rusty crayfish. This is a species that is native to the kind of Ohio, Mississippi River drainage through there. They are voracious little creatures. You would think like, hey, this small little animal, like what impact can it have? I mean, they can pretty much denude habitats when they are in large numbers. They eat everything. And so strong impacts on native plants and animals. The way you tell it, the rusty comes from this reddish brownish colored spot on the end of its carapace on either side of it. And then it has these black tips on the bands of its pinchers, and the pinchers don't close all the way. When they close, they leave a kind of little opening, a little gap in them. You know, this is one that, you know, really, how are you going to see it? You probably would see it by in like, maybe if you had like a minnow trap or like a basket or something in the water that you pulled out or would go through. You know, they're pretty inconspicuous. So when they're in the water, they're, you know, or stream, they're kind of hard to see. Or maybe an angler would tell you about them. They are, we have a few historic records of them in the prism, but not really very, very good ones. And so, you know, this is for all intents and purposes a species that we are trying to keep out. This is one of the pathways that we're most concerned about is by bait, by an angler unintentionally or unfortunately maybe intentionally spreading them. So, you know, really making sure that we properly dispose of bait and, you know, really, you know, kind of take care of that so we're not moving things from one water body or one stream to another. And the last animal that we'll talk about is round goby, an invasive fish. This is a small bottom dwelling fish, can be grow up to about like maybe 10 inches in size. Key feature, it has this what's called a single pelvic fin. We do have native bottom fishes like sculpins or darters or log perches. They generally have 2 pelvic fins. So this fused pelvic fin is the key ID, and it has these kind of like bug-like or bulging eyes and a dark spot on its dorsal fin. This species, once again, got brought over from Eurasia in boats, ballast water, all throughout the St. Lawrence River, all throughout our Great Lakes. It moved through the canal system, through Lake Ontario and Lake Oneida, into the Erie Canal, into the Mohawk River, has now spread into the Hudson River and is moving south. I think it's all the way as far south as Poughkeepsie now. We are concerned about it moving north along the Hudson River into our region and also along the Champlain Canal. So lots of efforts in trying to educate anglers about this species, not to move it, not to use it for bait. and, you know, trying to find a all taxa solution to prevent it from moving through the canal systems. This species actually eats zebra mussels, so you think, yay, like here's a win. You know, one invasive species eating another invasive species. Unfortunately, it can't, you know, it cannot control the populations of it. And then once again, it's starting to cause these problems where now it's upcycling the things that have been bioaccumulated in the zebra and quagga mussels into the food system. So bacteria, things like viral hemorrhagic septicemia, VHS, avian botulism. We've had this thing of where seeing large avian birds, loons, cormorants, other types of fish eating bird species that will eat a sick goby, and then they can get sick themselves and even die. So yeah, it's pretty crazy the impacts that these food webs can have. So round goby is one that we want to keep out of the region. All right, any questions about identifying aquatic invasive animals? Just remember, for all of these 16 species, we have lots of different photos. We have different resources and guides and cheat sheets on our website. So if you go to ADK Invasives, you can go species of concern, see multiple different photos. Lots of great things on iMapInvasives. You can see photos that other people have taken it. Other things like iNaturalist or you know, other online resources. Great example. So don't feel like you have to know every single one of these all now. And as always, if you have a question about any of these species, you can take a quality photo, float it in the water, take a good photo of it, send that to me, or collect a physical sample and then hold on to it, and we can you know, get a local expert. Oftentimes a great resource is go to a local boat steward. They've also been trained on these species, so they could help you. But you can also send things to me, and there's other researchers we have. So we're here to help out. So as you kind of heard me talk about, we're really concerned about the pathways of spread, and the major pathways of spreads are boats, bait buckets, and aquarium releases. And so we need to do all we can. And the good news is that if our communities take these easy, proper steps, we can really limit and reduce the spread of invasive species. Because human activity is the primary vector of spread, and our biggest threat here in the Adirondacks is with is boats, especially motorboats that are moving. Here is some data from our partners at the Adirondack Watershed Institute, who run our watercraft inspection stewardship program. We get over 100,000 boats launching a year in the Adirondacks. They come from 40 different states. They come from 6 different Canadian provinces: Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, you know, places that we know have large populations of things like hydrilla and, you know, fanwort and other different things that we definitely do not want to have here. So that's why having the boat stewards out there and having everybody follow clean, drain, dry. And, you know, clean means that we are removing all types of plant material, all mud, anything that we can visibly see from any of our equipment: our rods, our reels, our jet skis, our boat trailers, our canoes, our kayaks, our boots. Anything that touches the water could potentially spread invasive species. So make sure that you check everything and clean it off. Clean gear also works better and lasts longer. So you're not only helping the lakes, you're helping yourself and your gear. And then we talk about drain. So drain all the water out of everything, your bilges, your live wells, your tanks, your engine, you know, bring it up and lower it down to trim it so it dumps all the water out of it. Because, you know, some of those things, remember those zooplankton, the water fleas, the veligers of the mussels, they are microscopic. You cannot see them. A tablespoon of water could hold, you know, some of them in there, and that could get transferred from place to place. And then dry, you know, dry generally means, you know, 5 to 7 days up here in the sun. So everything completely dries out. Open up the hatches and let everything dry out. If you can't wait that long, you know, take a towel, wipe down everything, or visit one of our decontamination stations where they are using hot water, 120 to 140 degrees to kill on contact those things. So that's what we call decontaminate. We have boat wash stations all across. If you go to 80kcleanboats.com, you can see them all around, and it will, you know, get your boat hot washed. That's the best way to do it. Another good way for some of your stuff is like with waders. They do these saltwater solutions. So we have wader wash stations at some place. So the Ausable River Association, you know, maintains some of these ones on the West Branch of the Ausable River. We'd love to work with other local associations to put in more of these in other places. So really important to do. Okay. The next pathway besides boats is bait. All bait, no bait should be dumped into a water body. You shouldn't dump anything into a water body. So, you know, don't dump your worms in. Don't dump, you know, bait fish into there. You know, that can release things intentionally or unintentionally. You know, so the best thing to do is either to give your bait to another angler and let them use it, or to properly dispose of it into a trash can in a landfill. Even dumping some of these things out on land, like the earthworms. We have invasive earthworms, you know, jumping worms, other things that we don't want to move around. So all bait should be properly used or disposed of. And the final pathway is aquarium releases. You know, don't release live plants or you know, aquarium pets. You know, people get some of these things, they think they're doing, oh, I'm saving Nemo, I'm helping them out, I'm just gonna, I don't want this goldfish anymore, I'm just gonna dump it in my local lake. Well, that little goldfish, when you dump it into a lake, they can grow massive in size and have all sorts of ecosystem impacts. There's like you said, some of these plants, we believe that some of our hydrilla introductions across the state have come from dumping aquariums. Our fanwort ones most likely came from that too. There was this little scare recently about zebra mussels being in these moss balls in aquariums. So unintended hitchhikers. So yeah, so please don't let things out. Please don't get turtles as pets and release them. These red-eared sliders, they live forever. And then people try to dump them out. They also cause problems. So if you do have a pet and you know you can't take care of it, contact a local shelter for rehoming, or the place where you bought it from. Sometimes they have programs for this. Okay, that is a lot of information. So we're gonna take a little break right now, and let's take a little. Let's take like about a 2-3 minute break. We'll come back like a little bit before, 10:15, and we will go over the methods of how we're going to do the surveying. All right, well, as I'll kind of start some talking back as people start to come back in here. Let's see, let me get back on my different things right here. Okay. I see, Kim, your comment. So we have banded mystery snails in Lake Pleasant. How concerned should we be? Anything we can do? Banded mystery snails are a non-native invasive species. It is not one of the 16 that we track. They are fairly widespread across the Adirondacks. They, obviously are having impacts on our native snail communities, on the food webs. But they don't seem to be too strong. We do see some localized times when they will get very large populations. Last year, we got several reports from Hamilton County of having these like boom and bust cycles, and it was like a boom in there. And basically, the only thing that you can really do then is if they're kind of in your cove or on your property, you can collect them all into like a bucket, and you can, like dig a hole and then just kind of bury them. In there, there's no current tools or technology that we have to control them. So unfortunately, once they're there, they're kind of there. So once again, that goes back to that clean, drain, dry, trying to prevent spreading them and prevent them from getting into your lakes. You also see in the chat, I put a link to the Go Botany Native Plant Trust website. Great website for northern New England plants that both native and invasive to identify. So Kathy was asking some questions about mare's tail, so you can kind of see that differences in the flower spike I was talking about, and then also the leaves of the mare tails underwater don't have that feather-like pattern that we see with our native and invasive milfoils. Okay, can you give me a nod or a thumbs up or a yes if you can see my still see the presentation? Okay. Okay, so first part, we talked about how to identify our 16 focal species. Excuse me. And now we're going to talk about how you actually do the work. So what does it mean to be an APIPP lake protector? Well, since 2002, we have had people just like you out here participate in it. And, it really takes a village. It takes everybody out here to do this. And we really are focusing on two things: the early detection of aquatic invasive species, so looking for new invasive species in a water body. And we're also trying to do, awareness and education. We're hopefully teaching you so that you can talk to your neighbors, other members in the lake associations, and help us spread the word about what we can do to prevent and search for invasive species. And so we really have created this great scientific framework of how to go out and to do monitoring and how to report it. And that's helped us keep track of where invasive species are across the Adirondacks. And we need a lot of help. We have over 3,000 lakes, 8,000 ponds, thousands, tens of thousands of miles of streams and rivers. So we can't do it all with our small staff. We need our partners. We need you to help do this. So this can work on lakes and streams. Lots of times you'll hear me talking about lakes, but any water body you can really do this on. And, why are we talking about monitoring? Well, we're really talking about this early detection and rapid response. If you just see one purple loosestrife stem, think how easy it would be to just pick that one plant up before it becomes this massive, infestation that can cause and alter habitats. Fortunately, we don't really see these really large growths of purple loosestrife anymore because of our successful biocontrol program. But it's a good visual example to kind of show how, it's much easier to deal with the species early on than it is when it is firmly established. And this is the idea behind the invasion curve, that, over time, the species ramps up, and as it gets so much of it, it becomes so hard to manage that we're never going to be able to eradicate it, that it becomes very costly to contain it or to suppress it. So if we can find it in this early stage, this eradication stage, then we'll have a much better success rate and much cheaper. which is becoming a big impediment, is the funding for this. Overall, because of our program, we have monitored over 500 lakes all across the Adirondacks. And the great thing to say is that 75% of these lakes have none of the 16 invasive species that we track on it. And this is because of our prevention efforts. This is because of AWI and the boat stewards and the great work that they do. So we really need to keep this prevention up. This is the true on the ground proof of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It is much cheaper, much better to keep these species out than it is to try to manage and deal with their effects. And some of these things, like banded mystery snail, Chinese mystery snail, you know, some of the, especially, you know, the animal species, zebra mussels, fishhook water flea, once they're in there, we really do not have any current technology that can remove them. Even with the plants, you know, it is very, very hard and very, very expensive. Okay, so this is our APIPP Lake Protectors overview. So it's a 5-step process. So you're here, you're attending the training. We ask everybody to attend a training or watch the video or come to one of our in-person ones. We'll have 2 in-person ones if you want to get some hands-on with some of these plants and animals. So you're doing the first step. Awesome, great job. The second step is to go out and to do it's a sign up for a lake. So you can visit our webpage. We have a sign up form where you can go in and adopt your lake and sign up. This helps us keep track of where everybody is going through there. We'll send this follow-up link in the emails with it, or it's on our website right now. You can go to it. Most people are doing this with a boat, like a motorboat, a canoe, a kayak, a paddleboard, and they're doing it on the water. You can do it from the shoreline or from the docks. You just can't, you know, see as much of an area. So, you know, you're trying to bring out everything you need to be on the water: your boats, a life vest, you know, your paddles, you know, your data sheets or your device, your electronic device like a tablet or a smartphone to record it. Some Ziploc bags are always good to collect samples, or like a little tray to float some of the plants in to take photos of. You know, having you know, a pencil and paper to write down, a camera to take good photos, polarized sunglasses really help. You can also get some plant guides and books. Like here's our you can see the aquatic flora of northern New York by Don Paget is another great guidebook. Like I said, we have all sorts of online resources and cheat sheets that you can print out too. Yeah, so these are just some good examples of things to go. An aquatic rake, where you can toss the rake in and then pull it back. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. That's a good tool to help you collect the plants that you can see deep down, and then you can pull them up. So yeah, they're a great resource. And as always, if you're going out in the water, safety is the most important thing. Bring a PFD, a life vest. You know, wear it. You know, bring your 10 essentials. We always stress practice leave no trace. You know, clean, drain, dry is part of that greater leave no trace impact. And then, you know, have a float plan. Tell people where you're going. Tell them when you expect to be back. So that way, you know, somebody knows where you are. So this is, you know, just good basic safety stuff to do whenever you're out in the water, even if you're not even for doing aquatic animal and plant surveys. And like I said, I can never say it enough: clean, drain, dry. Before you put anything in the water, we want to make sure that you've done your part so it's not potentially transporting invasive species. I see the comment, do I need to sign up every year if you've done it before? We generally encourage people to go on that web map and to sign up. It usually takes like you know, 30 seconds, and it allows other people and different things to see where people are surveying. Maybe you can find somebody who's already surveying on your lake. You can help out and work together, or maybe you see another lake nearby that, you know, nobody's doing. You say, oh, maybe I'll do an additional lake on there. It also serves as our waiver form, so it's kind of an easy way to do that. So if you can, go on there and sign up. Okay, so you've done the training, you've signed up online, and now you're going to go out and go out and search on the lake. So, this is kind of the needle in the haystack. Sometimes, we're trying to find ideally these early detection. A few small plants found early really matters. So this is a quality over quantity, a kind of approach. But once again, don't get lost in the weeds. Like, you can't look at every single plant, every single square inch of this. You're really just going to be paddling or boating around, and you're looking for something that sends an alarm bell, that jumps off. Really trust your gut. Most of the people, you've been on this lake long time, so something like, whoa, that's new or that's different. When that goes through, that tells you need to pay a little bit more attention. Remember those key identification features. So when you see something, it's like, whoa, that has whorled feather-like leaves. Let me look closer at that. Is that an invasive milfoil? Oh, that floating plant kind of has some serrations on it. Could that be water chestnut? So just kind of trust your gut and be observant. It's also a great way to be outside. Love being on our water bodies and lakes, looking at the plants and animals. We ask that everybody does at least one survey between July and September. Generally, choose a day that's good to be out on water, a calm day, so there's not lots of ripples that makes it, hard to see underwater. Sunny but not too sunny is generally the best, so you don't get a strong glare. Wearing polarized sunglasses can really help cut that glare and see underneath the water. And basically, you're just kind of doing what we call the zigzag meander survey through the littoral zone, which is your shallow water area, generally less than 20 feet in depth. So you're just kind of, slowly moving in and around the area, looking in all the nooks and crannies and trying to find, an area that, as you go around. Pay special attentions to inlets and outlets. They're usually good places for plant growth. Boat launches and marinas, they can be introduction sites. Places that are good for native plants are usually also good for invasive plants. And downwind shores. So some things can kind of collect in like certain bays or certain areas. We also have a tool on our website that we'll send out, our vulnerability mapper. It's a project that we did that used the models and data to predict which areas are most likely to have invasive plants. So that can give you some some clues like, oh, it shows maybe some hot spots in this bay. Maybe I should look a little bit closer in that area. Okay, so the vast majority of people are doing what we call topside visual assessments. They're on the water, in a boat looking down into the water. You can also, a great way to look is to snorkel or scuba to get underwater and really see stuff. But that's an option. You can do that, but most people are looking from a boat. Like I said, having polarized sunglasses, really helps. You can't do this going 10 miles an hour in your motorboat, just, looking around. And another tool that we talked about is the rake toss. This is basically a sample collection. Sometimes you'll see a plant and it's like, oh, I see something down there. But it's 10 feet underwater. Like, it's kind of hard to tell. Is it whirled or does it have serrations? Well, if you have one of these aquatic rakes, which is basically 2 garden rakes tied back to back on a rope that you just throw into there, you can drag it across the bottom and pull it up, so then you can hold the plant in your hand. To go see it. And then, so here's an example of it. It'll pull up all sorts of different things. So it's a tool that we use just to collect plants to look at. If you're going around and feel like, hey, I'd need to get a closer look, you can use one of those. You can make one yourself, or we have ones that we can lend out to people. Okay, you're out doing your survey. I see something. Here's the key moment. I see something. I think this is an invasive plant or an invasive animal. Now it's time to record that observation. And always we suggest, taking photos is a great way to help. Taking quality photos. So, isolating the plant, showing in a way where we can see those key identification characteristics, because somebody is going to need to confirm that, like myself or another professional. So having good photos and good identification characteristics really helps. Okay, there are 3 different ways to record it: online, paper, or the simple aquatic survey. I'm not going to talk about the simple aquatic survey. That's for if you get really super interested into it, we can set up a training for that. But most people are doing the online way now, and some people are also doing the paper. So that's what we're going to go over. The online ways are, they're form-based, they're easy to use. The records and photos, they just go right through up to the cloud and the internet, so they're shared around. Paper, we have multiple data sheets, they're tried and true, they're reliable. Some people will fill out the paper data sheets in the field, and then when they come back to their house or something, then they'll just basically transfer that to the online way. It's up to you, do which one that you feel is most comfortable with. But really, we're thinking about these big questions. What did you see? Where did you see it? And what did it look like? Those are the most important things that we're trying to answer. So in the paper, there are 3 forms. Our AIS observation form, you only fill that out if you see aquatic invasive species. 75% of our lakes, you're not going to see invasive species, so you're not even going to fill that out. That's our dream scenario. You don't even see anything. Then our general aquatic survey data sheet, which is the who, what, where, all the kind of information about what's going on. And then you need to fill out a map about it also. Okay, if you see an aquatic invasive species, now we need to record the information. These are the key points, the GPS coordinates. What species do you think it is? Did you take a photo of it? The distribution of it, the size of the area. And then when you go back, you can then hopefully upload that information into iMap. So that iMap stuff is done at home. So then on your paper map, you're then marking a corresponding area. So if I marked, okay, I found 2 places with milfoil, Eurasian water milfoil on this lake, then I need to have, kind of 2 locations on my paper map to kind of help us make sure we're in the right place, because we want to then transfer this information to iMap if you did not put it in. The distribution of the invasive species is just this general category. So is it trace, like a single plant? Is it sparse, like some scattered plants, clumps of them? Is it, dense plants or clumps? Or is it, a monoculture or a large bed, going through there? So, these are the general distribution of it. Trace, we're generally talking about is less than 5%. So, these green squares that are covered in here. Sparse is 5 to 25%. Dense, you're kind of in this bigger category, generally like what we say, like over 26%. So, really 50 to 75%. And then, a monoculture or a large bed is generally over 75% of there. So here's some kind of schematics, kind of trying to help you look at that. And then a general thing, how big is this area? Are you talking about, is it up to like 10 square feet? So like a 5 by 2, foot area, up to half an acre, up to an acre, or more than an acre. An acre is around 3/4 of a football field for scale. Okay, so that's the information that you record for an individual, when you're out there for an individual observation. When you're out there, especially like if you're on like a water body, where we have known populations, so you have abundant Eurasian water milfoil. I don't need you to map every single stem of Eurasian water milfoil. I need you to note, where that you saw it. We want that to be recorded every single year. Hey, I saw it, in this place, or it's in these couple places. But don't feel like you need to map out every single stem or every single, bed of it. The real goal of this program is early detection. So finding new species that we don't know about. So that's where your focus and time should be put on it. Okay, so after you've marked everything on the paper map or on the online using the iMap app, which we'll talk about later, you've done your survey. It's time to go back and clean, drain, dry, remember. And then you need to complete your paper map, and you need to complete your aquatic survey data sheet. So on the paper map, you're just now going to put a little mark on that paper map of, okay, here's this area. So I outlined the area I went on this one and made some little cross hatches. This is the area that I searched for it. Some people do entire water bodies. Some people just do portions of water bodies. That's fine. You know, just let us know where you went out. Some lake associations will have different people do different sections of their lake, or different people will do different sections throughout the season. Each one of those can be a separate report that, you know, you're reporting back to, and then we kind of can add them up all together. And then once you're done is the aquatic survey data sheet. Everyone fills this out, regardless of if you saw an invasive species or you did not see an invasive species. And this is just like, you know, the general information of, you know, the who, what, where everybody is, and, you know, the general things that you saw. So, you know, the basics, your volunteer, your name, your contact info, if you're part of an organization like a lake association or a partner group, the names of other people who are out with you, the total crew size, what was your total travel time, you know, if you had to drive, you know, to there and back, your total survey time. So how much time did you spend actively looking for invasive species? If you went out on the lake and you spent 2 hours looking for invasive species, and then you spent the next 4 hours fishing, great, I'm happy. You can go out and do that. You just write down the 2 hours that you were actively like looking for the species. And then you'll see this AIS search for and AIS detected. You know, the AIS search for, only check off the species that you feel confident with. So if you feel like, hey, I don't know how to identify starry stonewort, like I want, like, you know, don't check that box off. You know, spiny water flea, fishhook water flea, like unless you're doing like a plankton tow or some other type of thing, you're probably not going to visually see it. You know, round goby, maybe that pretty much the same way. So, you know, just check off the species that, you know, you feel comfortable looking for, that you search for, and then check off the species that you detected. Hopefully you are checking the none box, that you're not seeing any. But if you did, you know, check off the species that you did see. And then any general comments, you know, comments about the overall weather, different things. This is where you can write down special notes for us. And then the other basic stuff, you know, the date that you went out, the name of the water body, what town or county it's in. So that helps us identify which square pond or which loon lake you're talking about. There are many of them. You know, what's the water body type? Is it a lake? Is it a river? Is it a stream? You know, what are the uses on there? Non-motorized boats, public beach, you know, public boat launch. And then what kind of survey methods are you doing? Top water, underwater, a shoreline? Are you using just visual? Are you doing a rake toss? Are you, you know, doing another one like scuba or something? Did you survey the entire water body or just a part of the water body? And, you know, it's a follow-up survey needed, like, oh, maybe I would like somebody to help confirm something, or I only did part of it. You know, I need somebody to go out and do another one. So that's a yes, no. And then did you enter it in iMapInvasive? So if you found in something, you know, we really want you to, you know, put it in IMAP. It's an easy way to do it. So check that yes or no. And then you can then send this either by email, or you can fill out our online form, or mail it to us. So we collect all this, and we have all this. So your paper data sheets are now complete, and you can either submit that online by email, or you can mail it to APIPP. The online option are the exact same questions. They're just in an online format. So we use the iMapInvasives app instead of the AIS observation data sheet. And then we have an online survey 1, 2, 3 form instead of the aquatic survey data sheet. So they're the exact same questions, they're just in a different form. The iMapInvasive app, it works on Android, it works on Apple. You can do it on a tablet that has a GPS enabled, any smartphone. I think it's really easy to use. It works with your GPS and camera already in there. The data gets shared very rapidly. It's a really great tool. I highly recommend it. So you can download it on your phone. It kind of looks like this when you sign up. If you're new to it, you need to create an account. But once you create an account, it comes on there. You click add observation in the top right, this top right green button. and then you can take a photo right there with your camera. You can then select the list of the species from the drop down. You can say that you detected it. It'll automatically put in the date. It'll automatically drop a pin with your location with the GPS point. You can then be part of projects. We ask that you be part of our APIPP volunteer lake monitoring program. And then that will, it collects everything all there. It sends the alerts to everybody properly. So that's a good thing to do. If you have your own organization, so maybe your own lake association wants to form their own iMap organization, you can do that. But then it has the same questions about, the size of the area, the distribution of the invasive species, and then any general, comments that you want to take for it. It also has time, search, and minutes. We generally leave that blank. And then you save it to your phone. So this can work with no data, no Wi-Fi, no cellular signal. You can be in the farthest backcountry reaches and it will work, and it'll save it on your phone. And then when you get back, when you have a data connection or Wi-Fi, then you can then select those observations and you can then upload them, and then it goes to the web through there. So really great tool, really easy to use. We have lots of people doing that. The next one is our online aquatic survey data sheet. And just to kind of show you how this one works, I'm just going to go online and do this. So let me really quickly share a different screen. Okay. Okay, you should be able to see see my web browser now. So there's a link. When you go up, it allows you to open it in a web browser, or you can use it on this Survey 123 field app. The field app will work with no connection once again. So I'm just going to open it in a browser, and yeah, it's the exact same question. So I can type in my name. I'm going to do Brian Test right down here. My organization, APIPP. Are you a professional or a volunteer? So we'll say I'm a professional. You can write down, your phone number, right through there. If we need to contact you, it'll automatically put the date in. You can put the names of the other people that came out with you on there. So we had a total crew size of 2. It took us an hour to get there, an hour to get back. So 2 hours total. We spent 3 hours looking around the water. We were on Square Pond. We'll say that is in Essex County, and it's a pond. This one had motorized boats, non-motorized boats, and it had a public trailer launch. We did the entire water body. We did top water from boat. We used visual and rake toss. We'll say there's no follow-up surveys. We search for Chinese mystery snail, curlyleaf, pondweed, all the different plants. So we'll click these through. These are the ones that we felt comfortable identifying. And I'm going to say, yes, we found Eurasian water milfoil right here. And so we identified one. We entered in an iMapInvasives, and then we can do our searched area online. So what you can kind of do is it'll bring up a map if you have service. And so you can kind of zoom in to around where you are. You click this little button and you can kind of just kind of highlight. It doesn't have to be, exact the different areas that you went through. You double click it on there and you say, okay, we're good. So it kind of did that whole area. You can upload any general photos of it, and then you can write any of your comments, nice, calm day, Eurasian water milfoil on the far east bay, other examples, so you can put that in there. And then through you hit submit. And if there's any type of errors or you didn't actually fill things up, it'll give you an error. But once you fix that, it'll say, great job, thanks for submitting it. And that's it. You've completed it. So it's hopefully a fairly straightforward process that makes it pretty easy for you to do. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to walk you through this with a one-on-one virtual meeting, or we can send you the links to it. But most people find it pretty straightforward and easy to do.
Brian, can I ask a question? This is
Yep.
Kath. When I pull up on the app, not online, but on the app, the Simple Aquatic Survey, I get in a first sheet that needs to be filled out asking for your iMap personal ID.
Yep.
I have no clue where to
Well,
find that.
You can find your iMap ID if you go to iMap. So you have to have an iMap account first. You have to
Yeah.
go in and sign on to iMap, and then
Yep.
if you click on your preferences, it'll have your account there, and it'll have your number. Also, let me see if I can really do this really quick. So let me see if I can. So I'm going to pull up iMap for myself. Here's iMap. Okay, I'm going to log in to myself, and then here, now let me share my screen.
I've got
Okay.
preferences and I just can't. Oh, maybe.
Yeah. So, okay, here I'm logged in. It's coming up. Let's see. Can you see? Okay, can you see my screen?
No,
Maybe is it showing my iMap screen? Or?
no.
No. Okay, let me stop share. Let's try this one more time. All right, I'm going to share this page, share. Okay, can you see this now? Showing like an iMap. The top
Yes.
left, you'll see I'm logged in as Brian Green. You can see there's like a your account right over here, or persons. You can click on either one of them. So see, it comes up here, and see this person number. Number
Okay,
two.
that must only be when you go on the
On the
app,
website.
on the
Yes.
website. Okay.
Yes, you have to go on the website, and then it'll give you your number
Okay, great.
through there. But I'm happy to kind of walk anybody through this, or we can actually, if you have any problems with iMap, contact me. We can find your number. Once you sign in once with it, it usually will remember it.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Brian,
just
this is Mike Smith. I'm a little bit confused about how to do this now. So you have to go, first you have to set up iMap and then you go to this other program or something, or walk with me just how I do it, because I've never done this.
Yeah, so let's go. Let me see if I can go back to here to kind of. So essentially there are two, if you're doing it online, so you're doing everything electronic, there's two programs that you're going to use. So let me just go back to share. Okay. Okay, so if I kind of get back here. Okay, so we kind of have these two things. So the AIS observation, oopsie, is using the iMap app. So to do that, you should have an account with iMap. If you go to iMapInvasives.org, you can log in, just like you log into any website. You'll get a username and a password, and then you will get an account where you have a number with that. And then they have an online app that if you just go to the Google Play Store or the App Store, or anything online, if you type in iMap's Invasive app, you can download it on any device. And so then it'll be on your smartphone or your tablet, and then you can use that in the field. And you can also use that for terrestrial species, Phragmites, purple loosestrife, knotweed. So it's a really good tool to have. Okay, so that's to if you observe an invasive species, so you're finding Eurasian water milfoil or zebra mussels or whatever, you can take a photo, answer a few questions, and then easily submit it to the web. That is through the IMAP one. And then the other part is this aquatic survey data sheet. This is our very simple online form. It uses survey 123. It is what I just went through and just showed. It just is basically a URL. Most people are just doing it through a URL at their home when they got done doing the survey. You know, they're just recording that, you know, what lake they went on, how much time they spent, who went in, which invasive species they saw, they searched for, and which ones they did not see.
And what is the URL that you use to get that?
You will get that in your follow-up email, or if you just go for our website, it's like one of these.
Okay.
It's a non-intelligible one that you know,
Okay.
very long kind of code.
You get the link from your email.
Yep. Yeah, you'll get that. Or if you just go to, if you just go into Google and you type in lake protectors or APIPP lake protectors, the first thing that'll come up is our webpage. And then everything that I talk about today, this video, these, this presentation, our manual, all the data sheets, everything's on that webpage. If Sean's here, maybe he can just drop that into the chat right now. So, and if you have any questions at all or different things, you can always call me, email me. I'm happy to help out with that. Great questions. Any other things that people are confused about, or would like clarification, or would like me to kind of show again?
So it's Kathy again. So I think that I'm not sure that you mentioned that survey 123 is an app also that will be on your phone.
Survey 123 is an app that you can use on your phone. And so you could also do this. There are two ways that you can do the aquatic data sheet, either online through any URL, or you can do it as a survey 123. The advantage of having it as the survey 123 app is that it will work with no data collection. So we have some people who are doing this, you know, like in backcountry lakes, and they just want to fill out all the forms right then and there. That form would work with no data collection. So that's why
it also populates the GPS coordinates right there, so you don't have to write that down manually or figure that out manually.
Yep. Yeah. So you can trace out that searched area, or like you said with the iMap app, you know, if you're taking the photo of the invasive species, you know, and doing it right there, it's dropping the pin, it's putting the thing, so it kind of does it all in one place. So yeah, so if you're doing the electronic version, there's kind of these two apps, the iMap mobile app, which is kind of like the AIS identification, and then the survey 123 app, which is like the who, what, where did you look, where did, you know, how much time did you spend on the lake, the kind of the information about it.
Hey, Brian, I'm sorry. I had a little interference here. I think our internet's choppy. Which link would you like me to put in the chat? Was it survey 123?
No, can you put the link to our lake protectors page? So
yes,
on our website. So
cool. Sorry about that. I'll get it right now.
That's okay. So that's a good example, and that's where all of our that's where a lot of our resources are. But I'm also happy to go over this with anybody. Yeah, so let me see if see some questions. Well, let me finish right up there, and then we'll kind of go through some questions. So okay, so now you've gone through all 5 steps. You've done the training, you signed up, you went out and surveyed, you recorded it either online or paper, and then you did the reporting by hitting submit or by mailing in your paper forms to it. So awesome, congratulations. The first time you go through it, it might be a little bit confusing. We have many people who've done this for years and years. they're very proficient at it, and they do very, very well with it. So, then you can celebrate and repeat. You could do another survey of your same lake, different days, different months, you see different things. Or you could do a different lake if you really enjoy this and like doing that. So like we said, here it is. Here's our website right here. I think Sean put it on as the link right there. All the data sheets, this PowerPoint, the videos, links to the iMap apps, iMap trainings, links to the Survey 123 apps. They're all on there. So cheat sheets, I see, Michael put in there. Is there a cheat sheet to help identify some of these plants? Yes. We have an invasive species card. It's a, you can just print it out. It's a front and back of, I think, 12 most common species. So it's a simple little things. We also have some laminated ones. If you want me to mail you a laminated one, I can do that. Or if you come to one of our in-person trainings, we'll have that there.
And Brian, I just put a link to our species of concern page. It's not something you can take with you in your hand, but all of our aquatic and terrestrial invasive species are on that page.
Yep. Yeah. So lots and lots of resources on our Lake Protectors page. So go visit that. We also have a manual that talks about all the different instructions step by step for each one of these paper iMap app. Even goes into depth on the survey, the Simple Aquatic survey, if you're interested in that. So lots and lots of information online. Has some keys and some fact sheets into it. Okay, so following this workshop, you will get a follow-up email. You'll get a link to our lake adoption web map, and you'll get a PDF of the data sheets if you want to print out and use that. Links to sign up for the iMap app and to download the Survey 123. We'll have the recording of this workshop. We'll also have a follow-up survey that we would love for you to do. If you need a rake toss, we have some extra rakes that we can lend out to people, or you can just make your own. They're not that special. It's just two garden rakes, tied together and then tied to the end of a rope. So we have some here in our Keene Valley office that we can lend out to people. Or you can come to one of our in-person training for this. So in July 13th, we will be doing this same training, but in person, hands-on. We'll have live plant specimens and preserved specimens. And we will do this at July 13th at Peck's Lake in the Southern Adirondacks. And then August 16th, we're doing this at the in Newcomb area at the Adirondack Interpretive Center. So we'll have some of these materials available. We'll also have all sorts of stickers and clean drain dry towels and other different things. So if you can make it to one of those, we'll have some of these materials available. We also have other upcoming events, different things. If you're into roadside management of invasive species, we have a webinar at the end of July. Actually, tomorrow I'm talking about the Lake Management Tracker webinar as part of the statewide PRISM meeting, talking about the great work that Kathy does, and 10 different lakes that are managing milfoils, how we monitor that, a slightly different program. And also save the date, October 10th is our Adirondack Invasive Species Summit in North Creek. This is a one-day summit where we're going to have great information about climate change, impacts on invasive species, and also managing using new tools like gene editing and RNA control to try to control invasive species. So bringing in experts all across the United States for that. And you can go to our website, adkinvasives.com, events, and see all these. We also have lots of different past webinars and things available under our resources page and on our YouTube channel. You can also order our outreach material. We have posters and guidebooks for terrestrial species, things like little pamphlets that are helpful to share with people that talk about clean, drain, dry, and don't move firewood. So important things to share with other members of your organizations or community. And like I said, follow us online. 80kinvasives.com has tons of information. You can go to our videos and webinars on YouTube, and also social media on Facebook and Instagram. So lots of different ways that you can stay in contact with us. All right. So that's a lot of information in 2 hours. We're right at the 11 o'clock hour. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time to spend this morning with us. This video will be uploaded so you can share it with other people who weren't able to attend. I see there's a couple questions in the chat, and I'm happy to stay here as long as anybody wants. If you have to jump off for something else, I appreciate you joining, so you feel free to jump off now.
And real
I see-
quick before everyone jumps off, we will be sending out a follow-up email. Give us about a day or so. I like to upload everything to YouTube first so we can share that link. And then there will be a post-webinar survey that I would love it if you guys could just take a minute of your time and fill that out. And we'll also have some other helpful links, some things Brian talked about, and some resources in that email as well. So please look out for it. Sorry to cut you off, Brian. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, that's good. Thank you, Sean. I see in here, how does this interact with the CSLAP program? CSLAP stands for Citizen Science Lake Assessment Program, I believe. It's run by the NICE-FOLA and the DEC. It is a water quality monitoring program. It also does have some invasive species monitoring aspects to it. So this can complement your water quality monitoring. I encourage all communities and lake associations to take part in annual water quality monitoring, either with the CSLAP or ALAP, Adirondack Lakes Assessment Program, because monitoring your water quality is really important. Like we said, some of these invasive species can impact the water quality. So that's another data point that helps you understand what kind of management or what kind of things do we need to do. Awesome, Betsy. Thank you for yes. I'm glad you're excited to adopt the lake and get out there. Yeah, see another question about yellow flag iris. Yes, it technically is a terrestrial plant because it grows on land. It does like little wet areas, so typically you do see it by can see it by lakes or a stream. So if you do see that, that's where the iMap app is a great thing to go through there. Other things, purple loosestrife, Phragmites, knotweed. Sometimes you can see these in kind of wetland habitats. While not traditional aquatic, not true aquatic species, you can use the iMap app. You can easily take a photo, report that too. And then maybe that's something you put in the comments, but it's not one of the 16 aquatic species that we track. So that when we say like, is a lake invaded or not, that's not referring to terrestrial species that may be adjacent to that water body. Those species are also on our species of concern, the terrestrial ones, and in our terrestrial guide that we have.
Yeah, and that terrestrial guide, by the way, is free. Check it out on our website. I'll put a link to our outreach materials in the email I send, but it's a great cheat sheet if you're interested in doing terrestrial invasive species identification.
All right, any other questions, comments, things to kick us off for the start of summer?